The slap came first, a sharp crack that silenced the marble lobby of Crest Hill Bank. For a moment, nobody breathed. Then the whispers began. Did he just hit her? Behind the counter, the manager's face twisted with rage. His name tag gleamed under the lights. David Sloan, branch manager. His voice was harsh, cutting through the air like glass. Get your filthy hands off my counter before I call security. He spat. The woman in front of him didn't move. Her dark skin glowed under the afternoon light pouring through the glass doors. Her name was Maya Ellis. She stood still, her calmness so steady it felt unnatural in that storm of anger. When David's hand struck her, her sunglasses shattered against the floor. The leather tote on her shoulder slipped down, spilling open. Passport, documents, and a first-class boarding pass slid across the pristine tile. A thin line of blood traced her lip. Someone gasped. A teller froze mid-transaction. Another customer whispered, "Oh my God." Behind the counter, a younger employee, Sarah, maybe 25, grabbed David's arm. "Sir, the cameras are live." "Corporate can see this," David shook her off. "I don't care." "She's trespassing." Maya touched her cheek. Then, without flinching, she smiled, slowly, deliberately. She lifted her phone, took a clear photo of his name tag, and said quietly, "You'll regret that." Her voice didn't rise. It didn't tremble. It was the kind of voice that made people uneasy, not because it was loud, but because it was certain. David sneered. "You going to complain to who?" Maya's answer was simple. "To everyone who matters." The air changed after that. Outside, traffic hummed like nothing had happened. Inside, people watched in silence as Maya gathered her belongings. She moved carefully, sliding papers back into her bag, picking up the broken sunglasses with precision, as though even this moment deserved dignity. Sarah, the teller, whispered, "Ma'am, do you need help?" Maya shook her head. "No, you've done enough." She stood, adjusted her posture, and walked to the door. But before leaving, she turned back toward David Sloan. "I'll see you again," she said softly. Then she left. Nobody noticed the security cameras catching every second. The slap, the threats, the blood. But someone else noticed. The bank's automated system, already pinging corporate headquarters with a customer incident alert. The footage was being uploaded as Maya stepped into the sunlight. 2 hours earlier, Maya had entered Crest Hill Bank looking nothing like power. No diamonds, no designer purse, no polished entourage. Just a charcoal gray sweater, clean white sneakers, and a tote that had seen years of airports. Her hair was tied in a simple bun. She looked like any professional woman running errands on a Friday afternoon. But Maya wasn't any professional woman. She was the founder and CEO of Ellis Financial Group, one of the fastest-growing investment firms in the Southeast. She was there to open a new corporate account and to quietly test something she had suspected for years. When she'd called the bank to set up the appointment, she'd been cheerful. The representative on the phone had said, "Of course, Ms. Ellis, we'd love to assist with your deposit." There had been no hesitation, no disbelief. But phone voices couldn't see color. At the new accounts desk, the teller, Sarah, had looked up, her polite smile flickering when she saw Maya. "Hi," Maya said pleasantly. "I have an appointment for 3:45. Corporate account setup," Sarah hesitated. "Are you sure this is the right branch?" "The check cashing place is down the street." Maya's lips twitched. "I'm quite sure." "Could you please confirm the appointment?" The teller's tone grew uncertain. Okay, one moment." She leaned over to another employee and whispered just loud enough to carry, "Another one of those." Maya tilted her head. "Another what?" The girl flushed. "Oh, I just meant corporate accounts usually need a large deposit." Maya nodded. "That's right. Mine will be 4.5 million. Sarah blinked. "Million?" "Yes, dollars." Her tone was calm, but every word landed with precision. Sarah reached for the phone, murmuring, "Let me get the manager." When David Sloan walked out of his glass office, everything changed. He was tall, confident, and already irritated as if she had interrupted something more important. He didn't offer his hand. "Ma'am, corporate accounts are by appointment only." "I have one," Maya replied. 3:45. "My name is Maya Ellis," he gave a dry laugh. "Of course it is." "And how much were you hoping to deposit?" 4.5 million, she said again. The corner of his mouth twitched. "Right, and I'm Elon Musk." A few customers chuckled. The sound burned. Maya opened her tote and took out a folder. Inside were certified incorporation papers, tax documents, and letters of authorization, each neatly organized, each authentic. She laid them on the counter. David didn't look down. "Ma'am, we've had several fraud attempts recently. People bring fake checks, made up companies. We have to protect ourselves." "I understand," she said, "but I am legitimate." "People like you always say that." The words came sharp and quick, slicing through the room. Maya froze, not in fear, but in calculation. "What do you mean by people like me?" she asked. David's eyes flicked from her shoes to her hair to her skin. "People who don't usually do business at this level." The phrase hung there, heavy, public. Near the window, an older black woman shook her head quietly. A college student in the corner pulled out her phone and began typing on Twitter. "At Crest Hill Bank, downtown Raleigh. Manager refusing to help a black woman with business documents. Straight up racism. You're banking while black." She hit send. By the time Maya glanced at her phone again, replies were already rolling in. People were angry. They were watching. But David didn't know yet that the world had just entered the lobby. He leaned across the counter, his voice low and sharp. "If you don't leave, I'll have you removed." Maya looked at him. "Is that your final decision?" "Yes," he snapped. "And if you think flashing a fancy boarding pass is going to change that, you're wrong." He snatched the pass from her tote and waved it mockingly. "First class to London? How nice. Did you borrow someone's miles?" "That's mine," she said evenly. "Please return it. I'll hold it as evidence of fraud." Her jaw tightened, but she didn't raise her voice. "Evidence of what exactly?" David sneered. "Pretending to be someone you're not." Sarah whispered again. "Sir, maybe you should look at her documents." "Enough," he barked. "Call security." And just like that, the slap that would change everything was only moments away. The guard arrived first. A tall man in his 30s with steady eyes and the kind of presence that said he'd seen worse but wished he hadn't. His name badge read, Marcus. He stopped beside Maya, looking from her calm face to David's shaking hands. "Sir," Marcus said carefully, "what's the issue here?" David straightened his tie. "This woman is attempting fraud. I need her escorted out immediately." Marcus frowned. "Fraud? Did she present false ID or anything?" "She came in here claiming to deposit millions of dollars," David snapped. "Look at her. Does she look like someone with that kind of money?" The words hit the room like a slap of their own. A murmur rose from the line of customers. The older woman by the ATM folded her arms, her voice sharp as a blade. "I saw you hit her. You should be the one escorted out." David glared at her. "Mind your business." Maya stayed quiet. Her silence was power. Every second she didn't react made his anger look smaller, uglier. She took out her phone and dialed a number. "Yes," she said evenly. "I'd like to file a discrimination complaint. The manager's name is David Sloan." She glanced at his badge again. "Yes, that's SLOAN. David's face turned red. "Oh, that's rich." "You're calling corporate? Go ahead. They'll believe me over you." At that moment, Sarah's phone buzzed on the counter. She looked down and whispered, "Sir." Corporate already called back. The system flagged an incident. "They're watching live." For the first time, David hesitated. Just for a moment, Maya looked him in the eye. "I told you. You'll regret this." He opened his mouth to reply, but before he could speak, two uniformed officers entered the bank. One was a white man, mid-40s, with the heavy walk of someone who expected to be obeyed. The other, a Latina woman, scanned the room quickly, noting the tension. David waved them over. "Officers, thank God, this woman's causing trouble. She tried to scam us, and when I confronted her, she became aggressive." The male officer turned to Maya. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step outside." She didn't move. "Officer, before you do that, I'd like to report that this man assaulted me." "You can check the security footage." The female officer raised an eyebrow. "What's your name, ma'am?" "Maya Ellis. I'm a customer who scheduled an appointment to open a corporate account." David laughed under his breath. "Doctor now, is it?" Maya looked at him. "Yes, Dr. Ellis, PhD in economics from Harvard." The female officer blinked. "Harvard?" David rolled his eyes. "She's lying." The male officer asked, "What documents did she show you?" David hesitated. "None that were real." Sarah spoke up softly. "They looked real to me." And she had an appointment on the books. I saw it. Now both officers were watching David closely. The power dynamic had shifted again, even if he couldn't feel it yet. The doors swung open a second time. A woman in a navy blue suit marched in, phone in hand. She looked furious and scared in equal measure. Linda Graves, the regional manager. She'd gotten the alert 15 minutes ago and dropped everything to get there. "David," she said sharply, "what's going on?" "Thank God you're here," he said quickly. "This woman tried to commit fraud. I was just doing my job." Linda looked at Maya, then at the small drop of blood still drying on her lip. "Did you strike her?" David stammered. "She invaded my space. I felt threatened." Linda's eyes closed for half a second. She'd heard this before. Too many times. "Officers," she said tightly. "We'll handle this internally. Thank you for responding." The male officer frowned. "Ma'am, he called it in as a fraud attempt. We still need to clear it." The female officer gestured at Maya. "She has an appointment confirmation on her phone." Linda turned to David. "You saw that?" He shook his head stubbornly. "Could have been faked." Then Linda's phone buzzed. She looked down and her face drained of color. "A message from Crest Hill headquarters. Urgent. Trending alert. Crest Hill Bank racism. CEO monitoring live. Handle immediately." She looked around the lobby. 2 police officers, customers filming, an injured woman standing tall. Her mind raced through crisis management scenarios. "Ms. Ellis," she began carefully. "Perhaps we can reschedule your appointment for another day." Maya tilted her head. "When I look more acceptable?" The silence was cutting. The college girl near the window raised her phone higher, recording every word. The officers exchanged a glance. This was spiraling. David crossed his arms. "This is ridiculous. She should be arrested." Marcus, the guard, stepped forward. "Sir, maybe you should stop talking." "Excuse me?" David barked. "I've been standing here this whole time," Marcus said quietly. "She didn't threaten anyone." "You hit her." David turned crimson. "You're fired." "You can't fire him," Linda snapped. "Watch me." The argument erupted, voices overlapping. But then the doors opened one last time and everyone fell silent. A man in a gray suit entered. Silver hair, calm eyes, the kind of authority that didn't need to be announced. "Who's in charge here?" he asked. Linda froze. "Mr. Harlow." I didn't expect Richard Harlow. Chief Executive Officer of Crest Hill Bank. He'd been driving past when his phone exploded with alerts. He took in the scene. Officers, blood, employees, customers filming. "Explain," he ordered. David jumped in first. "Sir, this woman tried to—" "Stop," Harlow said. His tone was ice. "Ma'am, what's your name?" "Maya Ellis, and what's your version of events?" "I came to open a corporate account. Your manager refused service, made discriminatory comments, and assaulted me." She handed him her business card. "Dr. Maya Ellis, founder and CEO, Ellis Financial Group." Harlow looked at it, then looked again. His jaw tightened. "Ellis Financial Group?" he said slowly. "You're the investor who owns 32% of Crest Hill's parent company." The room went still. David's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. "You hit our largest shareholder," Harlow said. His voice barely rose, but it carried across the marble. "You assaulted the woman who literally owns this bank." David tried to speak. "Sir, I didn't know. She didn't look like she belonged here." Harlow finished for him. "Is that it?" Maya met his eyes. "That's exactly it." Harlow exhaled slowly. "Officers, thank you. The situation is handled. Ms. Ellis, I hope you'll allow us the chance to make this right." "I have a flight to catch," she said calmly. "But yes, you'll have that chance. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. executive boardroom. Don't be late." Then she turned and walked out, blood still on her lip. Head held high. Nobody spoke for a long time. David just stood there, realizing his life had ended in that quiet sentence. And outside, the hashtag climbed higher every minute. By nightfall, Crest Hill Bank racism was trending #2 nationwide, and Maya Ellis was on a flight to New York, planning the reckoning that would come with sunrise. Maya settled into her seat in first class, row 2A, window side. The hum of the engines filled the silence that followed her all day. Passengers around her scrolled through phones, ordered champagne, and smiled politely. None of them knew the woman beside them had just set off a firestorm that would change an entire institution. She pressed her fingers to her lip. The swelling was faint now. The blood long wiped away, but she could still feel the echo of that slap. Not just on her skin, on her patience, on every memory of being underestimated. She pulled a thin laptop from her bag and opened a spreadsheet. Rows of data glowed on the screen. 16 visits. 16 banks. Same woman. Same account balance. Different clothes. Her eyes moved down the list. Business suit, service in 3 minutes. Casual clothes, 18 minutes. Work uniform, 41 minutes. Identical checks, identical paperwork. Different treatment every time. She had tested this for months, disguised in every version of herself. The findings were clear. Appearance decided access. Her power wasn't in the money, it was in the proof. And now, with one viral moment, the system that denied her had handed her its throat. A message appeared on her phone from Ethan Ross, her chief legal counsel. Everything went viral in under 3 hours. Press outlets want statements. You okay? Maya typed back, better than okay. Tomorrow they learn who they've been dealing with. Another message followed. The board meeting is confirmed. Harlow and the entire leadership team must attend. She closed the laptop. The fight was already won. Now came the lesson. By the time the plane touched down in New York, she had ignored 82 missed calls, including a dozen from Harlow himself. Each one was more desperate than the last. She didn't respond to a single one. While the city lights blinked below, Harlow sat in his office, his jacket off, tie undone, face pale under the glow of 3 monitors. Around him sat his crisis circle, Linda Graves, the regional manager, still trembling from the confrontation, Paul Jensen, CFO, Naomi Chu, legal advisor, and Victor Laird, head of communications. On the screens, headlines multiplied. Bank manager assaults black woman, turns out she owns the bank. Each refresh made the situation worse. Naomi looked up from her laptop. We've lost 2.9% in market value since the video dropped. That's $200 million. Paul rubbed his temples. We can't afford a class action, not after this. Linda spoke quietly. He hit her, Paul. There's video. There's nothing to defend. Harlow didn't answer. His phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a reporter. It was Griffin, Ellis Financial's board representative. Harlow, came the voiceover speaker, cool and precise. Dr. Ellis is invoking her right as controlling shareholder to call an emergency board meeting tomorrow morning at 9. Attendance mandatory. She'll be presenting findings from her 3-month investigation into discrimination within Crest Hill Bank. Harlow froze. Investigation? Yes, Griffin said. Secret shopper tests. 16 branches. She has data. And she has the world watching. You'll want to be on time. The line went dead. Linda swallowed. What is she going to do? Harlow looked at the headlines again. She's going to dismantle us. Morning came fast. David Sloan didn't sleep. He spent the night pacing his small apartment, phone buzzing endlessly. Reporters called, former coworkers texted, and his wife refused to speak to him. He finally stopped answering it all. By dawn, his name was everywhere, a symbol of everything wrong with the system he'd thought he controlled. At 8:45, he walked into the headquarters lobby. Cameras flashed from across the street. He kept his head down and rode the elevator in silence. Upstairs, the conference room buzzed with fear. Linda sat stiffly beside Harlow. Paul whispered to Naomi. Nobody said a word when David entered. The elevator chimed again and the room fell silent. Maya Ellis stepped out. No gray sweater this time. She wore a dark navy suit that fit like armor. Her hair sleek, her presence commanding. The faint scar on her lip was the only reminder of the day before. She walked past David without looking at him and stopped at the head of the table, the seat reserved for Harlow. He didn't protest. He knew better. At exactly 9, Griffin closed the door. This meeting is now in session. Maya set her tablet on the table. Let's begin. The screen behind her lit up with a title. The Cost of Prejudice, 16 Visits, 1 Truth. Slide by slide, she showed them everything. Footage, timestamps, side-by-side comparisons. In professional attire, she'd been welcomed instantly. In casual clothes, questioned. In a work uniform, doubted and delayed. Same woman, she said. Same documents. Same checks. The only variable was what I looked like. Paul tried to interrupt. Dr. Ellis, surely this isn't systemic. She turned to him. Your data says otherwise. The next slide showed internal complaint logs. 87 discrimination complaints. 43 dismissed without review. 6 came from customers of color who dealt with your now former branch manager, David Sloan. David's head dropped. Harlow's voice was hoarse. What do you want from us? Accountability, she said simply. And reform. Today you choose how much it will cost you. She tapped the tablet, and 3 words appeared on screen. Takeover, lawsuit, reform. She let them hang there until the silence hurt. Option 1, she continued. Hostile takeover. I remove your leadership and restructure the bank. You all lose your positions. It costs $85 million in transitions and reputation collapse. Option 2, legal warfare. I sue this institution for systematic discrimination and assault. Every internal file becomes public record. You lose in court, you lose in the market, and you lose what little trust you have left. Her voice dropped lower. Option 3, cooperative reform. You terminate David Sloan immediately for cause. Suspend Linda Graves for 30 days without pay pending investigation. Launch full anti-discrimination audits, new leadership training, external oversight, and a $5 million community fund. I will oversee the reforms myself, she paused. You have 20 minutes, nobody spoke. The clock ticked, David's hands shook. Please, he whispered. I have a family. Maya looked at him for the first time since yesterday. You should have thought of that before you decided my skin made me suspicious. The minutes bled away. The air felt heavier with each second. Harlow finally stood. We'll take option 3. Maya nodded once. Good choice. My legal team prepared the contract last night. 60 pages. You'll sign them all before I leave. She turned toward David. As for you, security will escort you out. Through the main lobby. His mouth opened. You can't. You're fired for cause, she said evenly. And if you think about suing, remember you did it on camera. He looked around the room. No one met his eyes. When the guards took him by the arms, his knees buckled. As they let him out, Maya spoke one final sentence that would follow him forever. Mr. Sloan, the world is watching. Let them see what accountability looks like. The door closed behind him. The silence that followed was almost holy. Maya turned back to the group. Now, let's talk about rebuilding this institution before it collapses completely. The next slide read, Immediate actions, and what followed would rewrite the foundation of Crest Hill Bank. Maya stood at the head of the table while the board members stared at the glowing screen. The tension was thick, a mixture of shame and relief that the decision had been made. No one dared look away as she began again, her tone even but unyielding. Every broken system begins with excuses, she said, and every excuse costs people their dignity. That ends today. She clicked to the next slide. Immediate actions. Effective right now, every discrimination complaint from the last 5 years will be reopened. An independent firm, Locke & Partners, will review all 89 cases. The results will be made public inside this organization. No more quiet cover-ups. Harlow nodded slowly, the weight of the words landing on him like bricks. He knew what she was doing, tearing down walls they'd built to hide behind. Second, Maya continued, Linda Graves is suspended without pay for 30 days while an external review determines why 6 complaints under her oversight were dismissed without investigation. Linda's hands trembled. She wanted to protest but couldn't. Every eye in the room had seen the evidence. Third, Maya said, you will hire a chief diversity officer, a real one. They will report directly to the CEO, not HR, not operations. Salary equal to your CFO, Paul blinked. That's significant. Maya met his eyes. Consider it an investment in not losing another $250 million in market value. No one replied. She moved on. An anonymous third-party hotline will launch within 60 days. Employees and customers will be able to file bias or misconduct complaints directly to Locke & Partners, bypassing management. Results will be tracked and your bonuses will depend on them. The room went completely still. Paul swallowed. Our bonuses? Yes, she said. Every branch manager's bonus will depend on fairness. When discrimination costs you money, you start caring about equality. Then came the numbers that made everyone's heads lift. Secret Shopper program 200 audits per quarter using diverse testers. Wait times and approval rates will be compared by demographic. Any branch where minority customers wait 15% longer will trigger an automatic investigation. Training, she continued. Mandatory unconscious bias workshops for all staff. 16 hours at the start, 8 hours every year after. For executives, an additional 24 hours on leadership accountability. The first session begins next month with Dr. Gerald Hayes from Georgetown University. Naomi glanced down at her notes. That's going to cost over $1 million the first year. Then call it restitution, Maya said calmly. No one argued again. She took a sip of water before speaking the next words. Technology solutions, an AI monitoring system that tracks patterns in customer interactions. It will flag disparities in approvals, denials, and service times. If an employee rejects an applicant who meets the criteria, the system will require a written justification. Those reports will be reviewed monthly. Naomi's tone softened. That's actually brilliant. It's necessary, Maya said. Her next slide showed 3 large words. Community Investment Fund. This fund will provide $5 million over 3 years to support financial literacy programs, minority-owned startups, and nonprofit organizations that strengthen communities. This isn't charity. It's accountability turned outward. Harlow sighed, finally speaking again. Dr. Ellis, everything you've proposed will change how we operate. It will cost millions. But it's fair. It's more than fair, she said. It's survival. You got lucky that I believe reform is stronger than revenge. She handed each of them a printed contract, thick as a small book. Read every line before you sign. If you skip one word, you'll find it waiting for you in court. For the next half hour, the only sound in the room was the turning of pages and the scratching of pens. When Harlow reached the last page, he looked up at Maya, his expression unreadable. If we do this, he said quietly, you'll back the current management team? I'll support results, she replied. Not people. Meet the benchmarks and you stay. Fail twice, I call for leadership review. Fail 4 times, I remove you. Harlow nodded, then signed his name. One by one, the others followed. When Maya finally added her own signature, the room exhaled collectively, like they'd all been holding their breath for hours. Congratulations, she said. You just agreed to become better. Paul's voice was a whisper. When do we start? You already did. The second you fired David Sloan. She packed her tablet and turned toward the door. By Monday, I want the Chief Diversity Officer position publicly posted. By Friday, I want Locke & Partners' investigative plan in my inbox. The first review is 90 days from today. I expect progress, not apologies. Before she left, she stopped at the threshold. There will be a press conference this afternoon at 2. You'll announce everything. The firings, the reforms, the community fund. I've already written the statement. Read it exactly as it's written. The public deserves honesty. She placed a folder on the table and walked out, leaving the executives in stunned silence. Outside, reporters were already gathering, microphones and cameras waiting. The story had become a national symbol overnight. Inside, Harlow opened the folder and read the first line of the speech she would force him to deliver. Yesterday, Crest Hill Bank failed a customer. Today we begin to rebuild our humanity. At 2 o'clock sharp, the lobby was filled with cameras. Harlow stepped up to the podium with Maya standing behind him. His voice shook slightly as he spoke. Yesterday, a woman walked into our branch expecting service. Instead, she was met with prejudice and violence. That woman is Dr. Maya Ellis, founder and CEO of Ellis Financial Group and one of our largest shareholders. Flashbulbs erupted. What happened to her is unacceptable. It violates everything we claim to stand for. Effective immediately, the branch manager has been terminated for cause. The regional manager has been suspended pending investigation, and we are implementing a full institutional reform to ensure this never happens again. A reporter called out, Dr. Ellis, will you be pressing charges? Maya stepped forward. Her voice was steady, the kind of calm that draws every ear. I'm considering every option, but my priority is change, not punishment. This is not about vengeance. It's about transformation. Another reporter shouted, what message do you want this to send? She looked directly into the cameras. That racism has consequences. That silence is complicity, and that power used responsibly creates justice. The flash of cameras drowned out the next question. Maya lifted a hand. Judge this bank by what it does next. Words are easy. Progress takes work. She turned and walked away while the reporters shouted her name. Behind her, Harlow lowered his head. What began as a slap had become the rebirth of a company, but for Maya it was only the beginning. 3 months passed before anyone realized how completely the tide had turned. The downtown branch where David Sloan had struck Maya was no longer Crest Hill Bank. It had been renamed the Community Trust Center. The brass plaque near the doors read simply, "Let dignity guide every interaction." Inside, the faces were different. Marcus, the quiet security guard who had spoken up that day, now wore a tailored uniform with a badge that said Head of Security Operations. Sarah, the young teller who'd tried to intervene, was in management training. The customers noticed the difference immediately. They were greeted by name, seen without bias, treated as equals. Up in the boardroom, the first quarterly report lay open across the table. Harlow's voice carried a mix of exhaustion and pride as he spoke. Customer satisfaction has risen to 91% overall. Among minority clients, 88. We're closing the gap. Maya sat at the head of the table listening, her expression measured but pleased. She flipped through the data. Progress is the floor, not the ceiling, she said quietly. The new Chief Diversity Officer, Dr. Gerald Hayes, nodded. We've completed our listening tours. Every employee from the tellers to the executives has spoken. There's resistance from a few, but more understanding than we expected. Some people have started mentoring across branches. They're beginning to see each other. The metrics backed it up. Complaint rates had dropped by 40%. Response times were faster. And the AI system had flagged 52 potential bias cases. 12 were confirmed and addressed. For the first time, numbers told a story of growth, not damage control. Harlow looked at Maya. I can't deny it. The culture's changing. Slowly, but it is. Good, she said. That's what real reform feels like, uncomfortable at first, but honest. Later, she walked through the branch lobby. Customers smiled, employees greeted her with quiet gratitude. She stopped at a framed photo near the door. It showed the first community workshop funded by the new initiative, a room filled with teenagers learning about credit, loans, and saving. Underneath was a quote she'd chosen herself: "Power used for others is power at its best." That evening, in her office overlooking the city, Maya reread the email from Locke and Partners. 89 complaints reviewed, 34 substantiated, 12 managers terminated, 9 on probation, settlements total, $480,000. Justice by the numbers. But what stayed with her weren't the statistics. It was the stories. A woman who finally got a mortgage after years of rejection. A small business owner who was treated with respect. A teenager who opened her first savings account without being questioned about her real job. The press had called Maya a revolutionary. The woman who changed banking, one headline read. Another said, the slap that shook a system. She didn't feel revolutionary. She felt responsible. When a reporter asked if she regretted walking into that branch that day, she had answered, I regret that it had to happen, but not that I did it. He'd pressed again. You could have told them who you were. You could have avoided the whole scene. Maya's answer had been steady. If I'd said I was the CEO, what would that have changed? He'd have learned to discriminate more carefully. Not to stop being biased, just to hide it better. I wasn't there to escape the problem. I was there to expose it. She closed the interview with a single line that became quoted everywhere. Dignity shouldn't depend on a title. As the sun set over the skyline, she touched the small scar still faint on her lip. She hadn't had it removed. It reminded her of everything. The slap, the humiliation, the silence, and then the strength. Her assistant, Grace, knocked gently. Dr. Ellis, the community fund's next allocation report is ready. They've approved 89 microloans so far. Good, Maya said. Let's push for 100 before the year ends. Already on it, Grace replied. And the legislature just passed the Banking Equity Act, inspired by your reforms. Maya smiled faintly. Then maybe we're finally learning. Outside her office, life moved on. Bank employees walked home lighter. Customers left with genuine smiles, and in a dozen branches across the country, the ripple of her actions continued. The transformation spread beyond Crest Hill. Other banks called to ask how they had done it. Maya didn't charge them a fee or sell them a guide. She sent them everything, the audits, the reforms, the training model, with one sentence at the top: don't copy my methods. Copy my courage. Months later, a post appeared online from a young nurse named Alicia. Walked into Crest Hill Bank today in my scrubs. Got served in 5 minutes. Opened my account without judgment. Thank you, Maya Ellis. You changed more than a bank. You changed what people expect from one. That was the message Maya framed on her wall. Not the awards, not the praise, just that simple note. Because in the end, change wasn't about power or revenge. It was about moments like that. And as night settled over the city, Maya whispered to herself the truth that had guided every step of her journey. You can't fix what you refuse to see, but once you face it, you can build something better. Then she closed her laptop, leaned back in her chair, and smiled, not as the woman who had been slapped, but as the one who made the whole world listen. The following year, the world had moved on, or so it seemed. But Maya hadn't. She sat in a boardroom 20 stories above the city, the skyline sharp against the glass. The quarterly meeting of Crest Hill Bank had just begun, but the atmosphere was different now. There was respect in the air, not fear, not formality, but the kind that comes from knowing someone has earned every ounce of it. Harlow spoke first. Our market value is up 17% year over year. Media coverage is positive. The Harvard Business Review called our transformation a case study in corporate conscience. Maya nodded. Numbers matter, but integrity matters more. Tell me what we've done since the last audit. Dr. Hayes, the new Chief Diversity Officer, pulled up a chart. Community fund disbursement has reached 3 million of the 5 million total. Our micro-lending program has created over 400 local jobs. Wait times across all branches are now within a 2-minute average for every demographic. No major complaints filed in the last quarter. The boardroom went quiet for a second, as though everyone wanted to let those numbers breathe. Maya looked around the table. Do you see what happens when you start believing in fairness as a strategy, not charity? This is what equality looks like when it's tracked. There was a soft murmur of agreement. Even Paul, who once worried about costs, said, "The reforms are expensive, but the loyalty they've built is priceless." Maya smiled faintly. That's the line you'll tell shareholders. They laughed lightly, the kind of laughter that came from relief, not mockery. Harlow leaned forward. Dr. Ellis, the board would like to formally request your continued leadership as chair for another year. You've proven what accountability can achieve. Maya took a slow breath. If I stay, I expect the same pace. No comfort zones. No shortcuts, so you have our word, he said. She looked out over the skyline again. Then let's keep going. As the meeting adjourned, her phone buzzed with a notification. A new video was trending. A young woman standing outside a different bank holding her phone, speaking confidently about the respect she'd received after years of rejection. The caption read, "Inspired by Dr. Maya Ellis." Maya watched it in silence for a moment. Then she smiled. Later that evening, she drove out of the city to a quiet park. The air smelled of pine and new rain. Near the lake, a small memorial garden had been planted, the Dignity Grove, funded by Crest Hill's Community Initiative. On one plaque, engraved in bronze, were the words Maya had once spoken to the press. Dignity shouldn't depend on a title. She knelt beside the plaque, tracing the words with her fingertips. The sky was turning gold with sunset, and for the first time in months she allowed herself to feel something other than focus. A voice startled her. "Dr. Ellis?" She turned to see Marcus, the security chief, standing a few steps away, holding a small box. "I didn't mean to interrupt. The team wanted you to have this." He handed it to her. Inside was a single golden key on a black ribbon. The engraving read, "The key to change." She looked up at him. "You didn't have to do this," he smiled. "We wanted to. For what you did, for what you gave back." She rose slowly. "It wasn't just me. It was everyone who refused to stay silent." He nodded. "Still, you started it." They stood there for a moment, the wind carrying ripples across the water. Maya slipped the key into her palm and looked at the setting sun. "I started it," she said softly, "but now it belongs to all of us." That night, she returned home, poured a glass of wine, and opened her laptop. The reform program's dashboard flickered across the screen. Scores, data, testimonials. But her eyes lingered on one message that had arrived an hour earlier. It was from a young man named Jordan, an intern at one of Crest Hill's partner firms. He wrote, "I used to think people like me would never make it in finance. Then I read your story. Now I know better. Thank you." Maya leaned back, feeling the quiet satisfaction that comes only after a storm. Not the thrill of victory, something deeper. She typed her reply slowly. "Never let them decide what you're worth. Build your own measure." As she hit send, she realized the story had come full circle. The woman once dismissed as not belonging now shaped the standard of belonging itself. Somewhere in another city, someone else would face the same doubt, the same dismissive glance, the same moment of choice between silence and courage. And when they chose to speak, when they chose to stand, a part of her would be standing with them. Maya closed her laptop and looked out the window. The city lights shimmered like tiny beacons below. She whispered to herself, "It was never about the bank. It was about what we decide to believe in." Then she turned off the lights and let the world rest, for now. Because change, once awakened, never sleeps.